They're not observing you out of admiration. They're analyzing you, measuring your pauses, your tone, your gaze, the tilt in your shoulders when questioned. Manipulators don't hunt for strength. They seek softness disguised as kindness, compliance masquerading as virtue. They read your silences for guilt, your hesitations for doubt. The moment they detect the smallest crack, they wedge themselves in with flattery or guilt or passive aggression. And while you think the conversation is about honesty or empathy or openness, they're building a psychological cage around you, one expectation at a time. You've been trained to play fair in an unfair world, conditioned to meet cruelty with kindness, deceit with transparency, and aggression with submission. But this isn't a morality play. It's a psychological battlefield camouflaged in pleasantries. If you keep living by rules that manipulators do not recognize, you will always be outmaneuvered. The truth is simple. To survive here, you need more than good intentions. You need tactics. And if you wish not just to survive, but to win, you must learn to see the game before it's played, to know every move without ever showing your hand. You begin by destroying their rhythm. Manipulators thrive on asymmetry. They attack, you respond. They project, you internalize. They provoke, you explain. But when you shift from reacting to reflecting, from emotional to strategic, the illusion of their control begins to collapse. Imagine staring back at their smirk with a calm, silent gaze. No frown, no smile, just stillness. They ask a loaded question. You return it word for word, stripped of tone, void of eagerness. They compliment you extravagantly. You nod, unbothered, unimpressed. You become a mirror, not to flatter, but to expose. The mirror is a weapon because they cannot stand their own image reflected back without the veil of dominance. The second rule is emotional control, not suppression, but filtration. Your emotions are sacred data. In the hands of manipulators, they are tools to control you. The smile you give too easily, the flinch when criticized, the speed at which you explain yourself, these are signals. When you learn to keep your emotions internal, you become unreadable. You're no longer dancing to their tempo. You're the still figure in a room full of noise, and silence is the one thing manipulators cannot interpret. They throw provocations like stones, but when nothing ricochets back, they become uneasy, because their power depends on seeing you bleed. So when they make the joke at your expense, do not respond. Let the silence ring like a bell. When they twist your words with that passive-aggressive grin, do not correct them. Let the lie hang awkward in the air. When they bait you into defending yourself, offer no argument, only stillness. Let them feel the hollowness of their own tactics echoing off your silence. This isn't about being heartless. It's about preserving your sovereignty. You are no longer the emotional supplier. You're the void they cannot manipulate. And when they demand urgency, decide now, answer quickly, respond immediately. You break the chain with strategic delay. Time becomes your blade. You don't respond to pressure. You slow it down, because speed is their weapon, and slowness is your shield. A manipulator wants decisions before you think, reactions before you calculate. But you now operate in deliberate stillness. A message comes in, urgent, pressing, filled with emotional cues. You wait. Hours, maybe days. Not out of pettiness, but because power is never rushed. Your delay is not silence. It is observation. The more they wait, the more they unravel. Their mask slips. Their anxiety shows. They start revealing more than they intended, who they really are beneath the charm. You don't even need to confront them. You simply disrupt the pattern. When they expect protest, give indifference. When they prepare for resistance, give nothing. No reaction is louder than silence. This is how you reclaim control, not by fighting louder, but by refusing to play their game. When someone confronts you in person, don't fire back. Let your pause speak first. Breathe. Let them stew in their own projection. And when you do speak, it is calm, concise, and non-defensive. You do not explain. You choose. You do not justify. You observe. You are no longer reacting to the situation. You are reading it. This is how kings operate. This is how true control is executed, not with noise, but with silence measured like a blade. And then you learn reward reversal. Every manipulator operates on a simple formula: bait, react, reward. They use compliments or guilt as levers. They appeal to your ego or your conscience. And when either button works, they install the system. You become responsive to praise or paralyzed by guilt, and they now own your emotional rhythm. So you reverse it. They flood you with flattery, and you nod, uninterested. They press you with guilt, and you say, "Not this time," without elaboration. You take back control not by rejecting the reward, but by removing its value, because they expect you to chase validation. But now, they chase yours. This reversal isn't loud, it's surgical. Someone praises your brilliance, hoping to make you pliable. You smile politely, then shift the subject. They try to guilt you. "After all I've done for you." But you remain unmoved, responding with a calm, "I'll think about it." No justifications. No explanations. Because explanation is weakness when it's undeserved. The manipulator feeds on being seen, being obeyed. So when you become the one who controls who gets your approval, you shatter their framework. You no longer feed their ego. You ration it, control it, make it scarce. And what is scarce becomes valuable. They don't know where they stand anymore. And in that doubt, you gain the upper hand. In meetings, in relationships, in subtle moments of power play, this becomes your strongest leverage. They expect a reaction. You give them stillness. They expect emotional currency. You offer a closed vault. And when they try to take center stage by undermining you, you redirect attention without even acknowledging them. You compliment someone else. You shift the power. You make them irrelevant. That is the purest form of dominance, repositioning power without confrontation. You are no longer following their script. You are the script. You are the silence between their moves that makes their manipulation echo louder than they intended. You become the one they study, the one they cannot read, the one whose approval they start to crave, without understanding why. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Because when you stop reacting on demand, you force people to earn your attention, not exploit it. And in the absence of your predictable responses, they are left alone with the discomfort of their own manipulative instincts. But to keep this edge, you must wear the armor of ambiguity. Nothing makes a manipulator more nervous than uncertainty. Clarity gives them a blueprint. Vagueness gives them a maze. When they can label you, they can plan against you. But when they don't know where you stand, emotionally, strategically, even socially, they freeze. Every manipulator is a tactician, and every tactician hates what they can't map. So you stop giving them coordinates. You stop providing full answers. You stop narrating your every move, your every mood, your every boundary. When they ask, "What are you thinking?" you reply, "I'll let you know when it matters." When they push, "Why didn't you respond right away?" You shrug. "Wasn't urgent." When they demand your position on something sensitive, you say, "It depends on how things unfold." This is not deflection, it is design. Controlled ambiguity transforms you from a subject into a question mark. And questions unsettle people more than facts ever could. Even your body language becomes deliberate. You don't nod excessively. You don't mirror their fake enthusiasm. You maintain an unreadable poise, not to deceive, but to protect. Because once they think they've read you, they start plotting. But when you give them nothing, no verbal certainty, no emotional signals, no tells, they start projecting. They fill in the blanks with their fears, their hopes, their assumptions. And in doing so, they expose themselves. The manipulator, desperate for clarity, becomes the one who reveals too much. You hold this ambiguity like a sword. At work, you don't explain your every move. In relationships, you don't label your every feeling. You let people experience your presence as both engaging and restrained. Never completely theirs, always just beyond reach. This paradox fuels fascination. It makes people think twice before pushing boundaries. It earns respect because what cannot be easily understood also cannot be easily dismissed. In negotiation, the ambiguous man wins. He doesn't declare intent. He lets others show their hand first. He doesn't speak to fill silence. He watches how others stumble through it. Ambiguity creates space. And in that space, you gain the clearest picture of who others truly are. Their impatience, their control issues, their insecurities. It all rises to the surface when they're forced to sit with mystery. But ambiguity alone is not enough. It must be paired with something even more devastating: the exit threat. You want to dismantle a manipulator's power? Show them, without ever announcing it, that you can walk away, quietly, calmly, completely. Not out of anger, but indifference. You aren't there out of fear or need. You're there by choice. And the second it stops serving your peace, you leave. This threat is never spoken. It's felt. In the way you don't chase validation. In the way you don't argue your worth. In the way you disappear for days without offering a detailed itinerary. You create psychological oxygen scarcity. They realize, sometimes too late, that their games no longer hold you. And in that realization, their power dies. In personal relationships, this looks like detachment, not coldness, but a sacred disconnection from emotional coercion. They try guilt. So I guess you don't care about me. You say nothing. They try obligation. You owe me after everything I've done. You don't flinch. You walk. And when your presence evaporates, they finally feel the silence they used to weaponize against you. But this time, it turns inward. Because you've stopped needing them. And now they must confront their own emptiness. In the professional world, you execute the same strategy with quiet precision. You let the manipulator overplay their hand. You document, you observe, you build options. And when the time is right, you leave, not in anger, but in grace. You don't announce your departure. You simply step into a better offer. The office feels your absence more than they ever acknowledged your presence. That's psychological exit velocity. No warning, just withdrawal. And that terrifies them more than confrontation ever could. But this threat must be real to work. You cannot fake detachment. You cannot pretend to walk away if your identity is still tangled in their approval. You must be willing, truly willing, to be alone, to be misunderstood, to lose people who never valued you without losing yourself. Only then does your presence carry weight. Only then does your absence have meaning. Because when people know you can disappear without regret, they either step up or step aside. Both outcomes are wins. This isn't about becoming unfeeling. It's about becoming unowned. You set the terms. You choose the company. You control the narrative through silence, space, and consequence. And anyone who cannot honor that exits themselves. And still, you escalate your power with the masterstroke, playing dumb. The manipulator thrives on visible resistance. They want to argue. They want you emotional. So you deny them the fight. You let them speak. You let them think they've fooled you. All the while you observe, you collect, you wait. They think they've outwitted you, that you've taken the bait, but you haven't. You've built the entire playbook while pretending not to notice the game. This isn't weakness. It's the highest form of psychological warfare, the art of misdirection. They insult you. You smile faintly and move on. They test you with traps. You step around them as if you never saw them. They ramp up their tactics, and you become quieter, calmer, even more unfazed. Because the goal isn't to win the round. The goal is to win the war. And war is not won through emotion. It is won through silence, patience, and timing. You become the one they never see coming, the one who seemed harmless, until you weren't. And when the moment arrives, you act, not with anger, but with cold, surgical clarity. You expose them not with rage, but with evidence. You dismantle their power not with protest, but with absence. And they never recover from it. Because you didn't just reject their control, you revealed that they never had it to begin with. You are no longer their pawn, their puzzle, or their puppet. You've become unreadable, an echo without origin, a shadow they cannot pin down. And in that transformation, you've crossed into a territory few ever reach. The territory of those who hold power not by dominance, but by detachment. You no longer explain your boundaries. You enforce them silently. You don't defend your character to those who question it. You let their doubts fester unanswered. Because now you understand. Explaining is for the insecure. Silence is for the sovereign. Manipulators are loud because they fear stillness. They ask questions not for clarity, but for leverage. They offer connection not for love, but for intel. And when they can't get answers from you, they resort to desperation. That's when you know you've won. Not when they submit, but when they unravel. They'll lash out with accusations. You've changed. You're distant. You're impossible to talk to. Let them. Their discomfort is confirmation that your old self, the reactive one, the explaining one, the desperate for clarity one, is gone. You are now an enigma. And people respect enigmas far more than they do explanations. Understand something deeper. You don't owe anyone access to your internal world. Not your plans, not your pain, not your process. Everything about you is now gated behind discernment. You decide who gets in. You decide who stays. You no longer hope to be understood. You filter for those worthy of understanding you. This shift alone will strip away every manipulative bond ever tied to your name. Because manipulators rely on one thing, your fear of being alone. When you shed that fear, they lose their only weapon. They will test you, some softly, with kindness that feels too polished, others with rage, trying to spark a fire in you. Both are tactics, both are traps. But you've stopped responding to bait. You've trained yourself in the art of indifference, not apathy, but emotional discipline. You feel everything, but you no longer broadcast it. Your emotions are stored, guarded, refined. They serve you, not the crowd. Your approval is rare. Your words are earned. Your time is sacred. And this scarcity becomes the foundation of your value. Now, watch how people begin to treat you differently. The ones who once demanded explanations now tread lightly. The ones who manipulated through guilt now flounder in silence. You've removed their operating system. They have no map. And people without maps don't take territory. They retreat. They talk about you to others, trying to figure you out. They speculate, assume, project. And every assumption is a mirror, reflecting what they wanted from you and never got. Because detachment doesn't just protect your peace, it reveals who truly deserves a seat at your table. It filters the takers from the givers, the users from the builders, the ones who admired your energy, but never respected your boundaries from those who honored both. This is the real gift of unreadability. You are no longer pursued for what you provide, but for who you are beneath the silence. There is power in being the one who can leave without slamming the door. Power in the unanswered message, the unreturned call, the invitation declined without apology. Because your absence is no longer passive, it's a statement, a boundary, a consequence, not out of cruelty, but clarity. You are no longer afraid to disappoint manipulators. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be respected. And if respect is too high a price for some, let them walk. Or better yet, let them stay confused. The man who plays dumb while seeing everything is the man who controls the tempo of every interaction. You don't just choose your words, you choose your silences. You don't just protect your boundaries, you make them invisible, so that those who approach do so cautiously, intuitively aware that you are not to be played with. You've built an aura now, one of restraint, quiet presence, and deliberate distance. And that aura does more for your reputation than any argument ever could. So what happens next? You start walking through the world with a new posture, not just physically but mentally, no longer leaning forward, hoping to be seen, understood, or accepted, but upright, still, unbothered. You don't chase attention, you command it through presence. You don't react to manipulation, you dissolve it by refusing the frame. You don't explain who you are, you let your silence draw the line in permanent ink. And suddenly, every relationship in your life begins to shift. Some people leave. Let them. They were never staying for you. They were staying for access. Others adapt. They speak to you with more respect, more consideration, more caution. That's how you know the transformation is real. When your presence forces others to level up or leave. But this path is not for the faint-hearted. It demands discipline, loneliness, and the rejection of comfort in favor of strength. You will want to explain. Don't. You will feel the urge to defend. Resist. You will crave to be understood. Endure. Because every time you refuse those impulses, you reinforce the structure of your sovereignty. You hammer another brick into the fortress of your mind. You deepen your gravity. You raise your price. And soon, you'll notice the most ironic shift of all. The very manipulators who once tried to pull your strings now circle around you uncertainly. They don't know how to provoke you. Their tricks don't land. Their flattery rings hollow. Their silence no longer hurts you. It empowers you, because you've become the thing they feared, a person beyond their control. That's what unreadable really means. Not emotionless, not disconnected, but sovereign. A person who chooses when to speak, when to feel, when to stay, and when to vanish. A person who lives not to please, but to lead. Not with noise, but with presence. Not with fear, but with calm that unsettles everyone who once thrived on your compliance. You've mastered the war they never wanted you to understand. And now, when they enter a room, they check for your reaction. But you don't give it, because you're no longer part of the audience. You're the one pulling strings, and no one even knows it.